you can hit it. Okay, we're gonna go spend some time going with the cycle today. In today's class, we're gonna come out of the doctor's opinion because that's exactly where this cycle right here comes from. It's in the doctor's opinion out of the big book, and it's on page XXVIII. This doctor, Silkworth, he worked in a New York hospital dealing with addiction, and he would find that there was a certain type of people that he labeled as completely hopeless, the real alcoholic, the real addict, that no matter what the consequence, we would just continue to drink and use. Now, we could stay away for a time if we went in somewhere to get treatment, or we went to jail, or we tried to move area, and for like 2 weeks or a month, I know people that for a year or two have stayed away, but they never quite could stay away for good and for all. They, no matter what, kept going back and kept going back and kept going back, and that was my story. And so for 19 years, I stayed on this cycle and kept going back and kept going back, no matter how many truth and consequences I faced in my life, how many times I emerged remorseful and made firm resolution after firm resolution, all the promises in the world that eventually, every single time, turned into broken promises. And I couldn't understand why, after it wasn't even fun anymore, why did I keep going back and listening to thoughts and putting something back in my body when it wasn't even fun anymore? And come to find out that this portion of the big book out of the doctor's opinion, somebody got the idea, I think it might have been Mark Houston, who put this on a simple board and laid it out, basic. Even the stick man drawing isn't fancy. Here's the individual, and it's laid out what the true problem of the alcohol addict is. And it's an eternal problem, a spiritual problem, this big gaping hole right in the middle of us that we fed our selfish and self-centeredness, that we tried to treat with every other thing that the world had to offer, getting temporary ease and comfort from it, but nothing that lasted. It was never good enough, right? And we lived with this spiritual malady. It's a spiritual sickness, a disease that never gets better. It gets worse and worse and worse over time. And it's described as this. Now, many people have misdiagnosed spiritual malady and attached different things to what is just a spiritual malady, spiritual sickness. You can see it manifest in the RIDs. See, these stand for feelings of restlessness, irritability for the I, and discontentment with the D. So I'm restless, I'm not at peace, I'm not comfortable in my own skin, although I was born in America with all the freedoms I could want, every opportunity anybody ever could even dream of and want. I'm healthy, I have good in my life, maybe some bad too, but I got good in my life, and for some reason, I'm not comfortable in my own skin. I'm full of fear and selfishness and very irritable, very snappy and irritable and discontented. Nothing's ever good enough. I'm always thinking about what others have and comparing myself. I feel like the smallest person in the room at times, or I try to project myself as being the biggest person in the room, depending on the situation. And this is how I've governed my life since I can remember. So this is how you describe the spiritual malady. Here are some other things that have been attached to the spiritual malady. How about depression? Are you struggling with depression? Which there's more pills prescribed for depression than any other pill in the entire universe. And a lot of that depression, if not all of it, is simply misdiagnosed spiritual malady. simply misdiagnosed spiritual malady. You don't have an intimate, close relationship with your Creator. Oh, I know God. I know God. Sure you do. Sure you do. Yeah, everybody seems to know God. Do you have a daily, intimate relationship with God, with your Creator? Because once you start to develop that and you get out of your self-centered thought life and you make yourself available for others, you stop living for yourself, that treats this spirituality better than anything. And we're laying out how you operate in these three parts to treat your soul, which is your mind, your will, your emotions, your body, and your spirit. And we're going to lay out these three parts on how to ensure someone to be healthy. Will you be perfect? Will you not wake up and have bad mornings? Of course. Will you not feel depressed or self-conscious at times? Of course you will. You're a human, aren't you? But these things left unaddressed, without dealing and treating them with the power of God and the things of God, now you got people coming and saying, I have clinical depression. I feel anxious all the time. Well, do you? Because if you're living for yourself and you're just stuck in addiction and other things, and you're not looking to God and letting God tell you who you are, you let the world tell you who you are, and you're only concerned with yourself and you're not working with others, who wouldn't be depressed and full of anxiety and restless and irritable and discontented? You've just been misdiagnosed. Oh, what about bipolar? I'm up and down, I'm up and down. Yeah, because you can't get out of your self-centered head and find out from your Creator who you were created to be and make yourself available for others. No wonder you're bipolar. No wonder you're discontented. Nothing's ever good enough because you're living a selfish and self-centered life. And so, spiritual malady left improperly treated has labels have been put on this. What are the labels? I'm schizophrenic. I'm bipolar. I have depression and anxiety. I'm restless, irritable, and discontented. There you go. Misdiagnosed spiritual malady. And there's 100 quadrillion billion dollar pill industry backed up by the doctors all over the world, especially in America, that aren't going to tell you the truth. That the problem is you're selfish and self-centered, and the world is set up to encourage us to be selfish and self-centered. But it takes people who aren't able to maneuver in that any longer, guys like me, guys like you, who come to this place, this crossroad in their life and say, wow, maybe I should try something different. Maybe I should try another way. But it takes surrender, and it ain't easy. And then when the light goes on and you start connecting with God and doing the things of God, you got to treat these three parts. Let's go over that. You got to treat the spiritual malady, because our sick minds keep telling us that I'm going to treat my spiritual malady, my internal condition, with drugs and alcohol. I'm even removed from the drugs and alcohol. I've emerged remorseful. I made a firm resolution not to go back because my life has been a mess, drinking and using. So why then, after making this promise once again, do I go back to putting a beer, one stinking lousy beer in my system, or one puff of weed, or one line, or one of anything? Why do I do that? Because if I don't treat the spiritual malady and the three parts, my mind, my body, my spirit, my alcoholic mind and drug addict mind tells me that it's a good idea to go ahead and put another substance in my body. Then what happens when I do that? I lie to myself thinking, well, maybe this time I'll be able to control it and get away with it. Right? I lie to myself because this is kicking my butt so hard. The malady is kicking my butt so hard that the insanity starts to come back. What's the insanity? This mental obsession I have that I'm going to be able to control it. I can put something in my body and it's not the same thing that's been happening over and over again. Complete destruction of anything good in my life. Somehow that's not going to happen this time. I'm not going to lose my place to live this time. I'm going to sneak out, have a couple beers, and get away with it. What? How many times are we going to do that? How many times are we going to... I did that for 20 years. What kind of insane thought do you have to grab a hold on to and actually put action behind that thought to do something you've done over and over and over and over? Are you insane? Yes, you are. You absolutely are. And without God's help, you're going to stay insane. You will literally stay insane until what? Until your death. Period. There's no escaping this. You have a spiritual malady. That's what alcoholism and drug addiction is. It's a death sentence. And if you don't surrender to this way with God and the things of God, you will absolutely never, ever, ever recover. Ever. You'll stay clean for a time, and you'll always go back. And so when I was shown this, that's why I'm so excited, because I saw my life in this, and then I said, ding, the light bulb went off. You don't need me to convince you. The big book talks about it takes an ex-addict alcoholic that has been in it, and you know he's been in it, to tell you this is what's going on with you internally, and this is how you get out. And when that happens, there's a connection, and you're like, I see it for myself. The light bulb goes off. Ding! You see your life, what you've been doing, how you've been living for all these years, right in front of your face. And so, why would we keep going back and keep going back? Once the alcohol and drugs are removed from our body, why can't we just function and hold things together and never ever drink or use again? And I never could understand that. Let's see what the big book says about it. At the bottom of page XXVIII, out of the doctor's opinion. This is the section where this cycle came from. And thank God for me in my life that someone put it where I could visibly see it. I had to have a visual of me and what was going on with me. So, the last paragraph of the doctor's opinion, XXVIII, it says this: men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol and drugs. Why do we keep drinking and using? Because of the effect that it produces in us is why we keep going back. And we're going to break that down. Okay? Let's read on. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, meaning even though it's destructive, but that sensation you get from putting a couple in you is so hard to shake and elusive, even though you know how injurious it is. Okay? Let's keep going on. That they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. So, you have amnesia. You can't even remember how injurious it is, how destructive and dangerous and damaging it is. You can't even tell between what the truth is and a lie is. You're bombarded with the lies. Why? Because the spiritual malady, this internal condition, is driving you so crazy that you have amnesia all of a sudden. What are the consequences from you taking a couple drinks or putting some drugs back in your body? You don't think ahead. What are the consequences? What are some of your consequences? Okay, you've been on this cycle for so long. You're removed for a time. Maybe you didn't know, but your malady is acting up. You're still living a selfish or self-centered life. You haven't surrendered your life to God, you haven't worked through all the steps, you're not taking anybody else through the steps, you're not being active in your recovery, right? So time goes on, right? You start to feel just not okay inside, because we always drink and use over how we feel internally. You see? So time's going on, this thing's building, you're not treating it properly, and then what? You decide that it's a good idea to go have a couple drinks to treat your internal condition. What are the consequences do you having a couple drinks or putting some drugs in your body? What are the consequences? Any sane person would not follow through knowing you having those couple of drinks. What is the consequence coming your way from having a couple of drinks? What is it? You're going to get caught. You're going to become homeless. You're going to lose every single thing that you had going once again for the umpteenth time in your life, like me, right? The umpteenth time. And yet you still follow through with thinking that you can have a couple of drinks or start smoking weed again. Or just get a 10-sack. Knowing the consequence is what? You're going to lose everything. And then you can't be honest with yourself. You have to have excuses around why you took a couple of drinks. Like me, all day long having excuses, emerging remorseful, making firm resolution. But in my mind, I had all the excuses on why that happened. If only I would have got away with it. If only they wouldn't have caught me. If only this, if only that. I only had a drink. I only had a beer. I only had 2 beers. I only had a 10-sack. I was just smoking weed. You weren't supposed to be doing any of that. You weren't supposed to have even a sip of beer. Let alone, well, I only had 1 beer. I mean, that's the excuse I gave when I was 17 years old. I was 17 years old, getting caught by my mom. And I was telling her, I only had a beer, Mom. Yeah, it was a 40, but it was 1 beer. And yet, we can be at the age we are, and we still have that played out, busted up excuse. Well, I only had a beer. No, you didn't. First of all, you're lying, first of all. But the reason why God has shown me some of this stuff and how ridiculous is the only reason why I want to come and share this, telling you that I've done that. I'm not like, how could you do it? I'm telling you, I've done that. I've had that thinking. My only hope is that a light bulb goes off, that you can actually start being honest with yourself. Think about your played out excuse on why, once again, you have to emerge remorseful and make another firm resolution, hoping it's not another broken promise, on why you went back to drinking and using again. And if we could smash these played out excuses, we're going to be so close to lasting change. Be honest with yourself. And honesty is going to set you off and set you free. So, here we go. Back to the doctor's opinion. It says, even though it has been super injurious in our lives, causing damage, how many times have we emerged remorseful? How many consequences have we faced? I mean, to the point where we've lost everything. Now we're homeless. Nobody has anything to do with us. I've lost all my relationships, all my couches I was surfing on, got wiped out one by one. I'm in and out of jail, and still I go back to putting that stuff in my body. And we're gonna wonder why. It says this, that to them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented. You see this? Here's the spiritual malady being explained. When you're stuck in that mindset of self-centeredness, doing the blame game, having all the excuses in the world, the same ones you had when you were 17, you know, those ones, as an adult man, still our alcoholic, drug addict life seems the only normal one. How am I supposed to live without feeling that feeling of being drunk or high. The feeling I've chased for the last 20, 30, 40 years. The only feeling that I found any comfort in. Realizing now, it's caused a lot of damage in my life over the years, especially over the past couple years, where the disease, the spiritual malady, the disease actually gets worse and worse and worse and worse. More consequences come. More and more and more and more. Now I'm just like in this pitiful state of existence, right? But still, my alcoholic, drug addict life seems the only normal one. I can't picture myself living sober until the day I die. You need to start smashing any reservation of you not living life without having a couple beers here and there or smoking weed still or whatever. You have to smash that reservation out. It says, of course, they are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks. Mind you, drinks which they see others taking with impunity. We see others, old friends, people we know, people at restaurants, handling a couple margaritas and going home, getting up, going to work, holding their job, keeping their boat. We see other people do these things, and we can't smash in our mind a life without alcohol and drugs. Right? Now, why do we keep putting those drugs and alcohol back into our body? It says, for that sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks or taking that first line or that first hit of drugs. That sense of ease and comfort that outweighs all the consequence and all the pain, all the suffering, all the damage. But we will forfeit all that for the sense of ease and comfort that we get from taking the first couple of drinks of that first drug. How do you explain that ease and comfort? What are you getting ease and comfort from? Catch this. From that. You'll risk it all. Chance it all. Become the biggest hopeless loser like I was. Everything. To get a little bit of ease and comfort from that. The internal feeling and condition, separation from God, living a self-centered life, not making yourself available for others. You will risk it all to get a little bit of ease and comfort from the internal condition that only God can treat. And this is alcoholism and drug addiction. This is why people can't recover. They cannot recover unless they treat the internal condition. And only God can treat your spirit. And the things of God can only treat your spirit. This is the best kept secret in all of humanity. People are acting as if there's not an absolute 100% cure for drug addiction and alcoholism. And it's just not true. There is, but you got to know what the problem is. The problem is this. The spiritual condition, the internal condition, it's rooted in the mind. Our sick minds keep telling us that it's worth it. In order to experience the ease and comfort from the spiritual malady, we will risk everything for the ease and comfort that a few drinks give us. And then get to explaining on how that wasn't our fault. Right? When you know, you know. When you know, you know. And you're going to find out everything you need to know here as we come out of the Bible and the Big Book. This is nothing new that we came up with. This has always been there. The Bible for how many thousands of years? The Big Book since the 1930s. And people act as if there's not a guaranteed 100% clad proof that you will recover. But you got to treat this on a daily basis. You got to stay in the three parts. What are the three parts? The three parts are this. Your mind needs to be treated every morning with looking to God. You're working the steps. You're actively living out the steps. You're renewing your mind with God's word. And every morning, you're reminding yourself who God is, what he's done with the renewing of his word in prayer time and worship. You have every single morning. And then, of course, you work the steps. You could rework the steps once a year. I recommend that. And you're checking with God every morning to keep your mind right. Okay? The body piece, you take your physical body 3 or 4 times a week around like-minded people. Whether it's a prayer life group, Sunday church, a what am I trying to say? A book-based AA meeting. You get a sponsor. You work the steps. You take somebody through the steps. Here's mine right here. Taking Kevin through the steps once again right now as we speak. You can't just be a talker of this thing. You have to actually put it into action. Kevin, say hi.
Hey, what's up?
See, he's actually an actual person. His name's Kevin. You have to put this into practice. So, you take your physical body. And then the third piece is the spirit. Guess what works the spirit the best? Taking somebody through the steps. Being available to work with somebody, the alcoholic addict. Do you know what kind of fulfilled purpose life you will have? You're going to have down times, ups and downs. You will. But there's nothing that compare. Now you have so much purpose in your life. You see those 3 parts? The mind, work through the steps yourself, actively live out the steps, renew your mind with God's word every day, have some prayer worship time, step 11. The body piece, you take your actual physical body to 3 or 4 different things a week. See, your priority to stay recovered and stay walking with God and stay on the path is not where it needs to be. You put everything else above your recovery, and you will fail. And the third piece, the best way to treat your spirit is to spend time discipling somebody, specifically an alcoholic addict, for us, and take somebody through the steps. And if you stay in those 3 parts, you will never relapse. Okay, but what does that mean? That means, what happens if you don't stay in the 3 parts? Can we just make this clearer? It's like, I don't know what people are retaining. I don't know what goes over your head. What happens if you don't stay in the 3 parts? You will relapse. Faith without works is dead. You are not uniquely different. You can't just go to church and not work with nobody and think you're going to not relapse. I have too many examples of people that relapse. I'm not going to say names. Many examples. So, we're going to finish up with the doctor's opinion. It says, we'll jeopardize every consequence, everything that we have already lived out in our lives, we know to be true for that sense of ease and comfort that comes. It's so crazy. Drinks that we see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and then the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. Now check this out. This is repeated over and over unless this person can experience an entire psychic change. There is very little hope of his or her recovery. Now mind you, this is repeated over and over and over again unless you can have an entire psychic change, a spiritual experience with your Creator, the spiritual birth that the Bible talks about. And on top of that, you put your faith into action and you make yourself available for others. You come around like-minded people 3 or 4 times a week and you have your daily time with God. You're living out the steps, renewing your mind with His Word. If you don't do these things, this will be repeated over and over and over. You've already done it. You've already done it. You know, like guys, I'm on this cycle for 20 years. I was so spiritually paralyzed and miserable and hopeless until someone showed me this. And I've been walking this out in the 3 parts on a daily basis. And 9 years later, not one relapse. That I couldn't stay sober for a day. This will work, 100% guaranteed. We got to understand what the problem. The problem has always been this, that I never knew. Why do we keep going back when it's so destructive to take those couple beers? We lose everything. Why do we go back? Because we're selfish and self-centered, and that ease and comfort that comes from putting those couple beers in us far outweighs any rational thought that we could ever have. We are literally insane. And then once we succumb to it, we put the substance in our body, guess what happens? I don't know why, guys, but we respond differently to drugs and alcohol. We put it in our body and we don't have control. When we see others drinking with impunity, meaning handling it, still functioning, holding jobs, this and that, we cannot do that. We prove to ourselves there's a genetic piece in the body that we respond differently, no control. So then what happens to guys like us? We're on the spree until we're not able to get it. We become homeless again. We're in jail. We lose our marriage. We lose our kids. And then, by God's grace, opportunity comes to what? To emerge remorseful, move out of state, get another job, someone's kind to us, move in with Uncle so-and-so, right? Who hooks us up, go to treatment, and then we start making more, I'm done. I messed around for too long. I should have quit earlier. I'm finally done. We tell our parents, we tell our loved ones, our friends, I'm done. That's it. My life's a mess. It doesn't even make sense for me to do it anymore. Right? But if we don't understand the importance of the daily approach and staying in those 3 parts, you don't treat this, guess what happens? It manifests in restlessness. I'm irritable. I'm snappy. I'm discontent. I'm complaining. I'm not happy with what I do have and the opportunities I do have. I'm plagued with depression and anxiety. I'm bipolar. No, you're not. You're selfish. Period. And you can't shake yourself. It's being relieved from the bondage of self is the problem. It says amongst anything else, not drugs, alcohol, porn, you must be relieved from your selfish and self-centeredness. And when you treat that, that's what treating the malady is. You recover and you stay recovered. I only tell you this because I love you. That's it. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't be taking my time with this. I'm telling you like this because I was you and I know there's a way out. So let's stay open to this information. That's not mine. It's from the Bible and the Big Book. I'll give you my experience. I'll do my best to break it down. We'll hear from each other and learn from each other. But you will never relapse but there's things you have to do. So you have to stay in the 3 parts. And I want you all to be so familiar with the 3 parts before you leave. And you're already operating in the 3 parts while you're here. Okay? So that's it for today. Thank you. We'll see you all next week.